Welcome back to the Hoth Hangout podcast. We hope you're having a fantastic morning, day, or evening wherever you are. Thanks so much for joining us. If you are not yet subscribed to the Hoth Hangout channel over on YouTube, definitely check us out there and over on all the social medias at Hoth Hangout, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok. You can check us out on those platforms. And for all of you audio podcast listeners, we are available on Spotify, Apple, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Joey, what's going on, man? How are you doing?
What's going on? We are a day late here.
We are.
We are. I'm glad to be back here. Had a lot of fun actually doing watching Kenobi. Spoiler alert. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Rewatching Kenobi in honor of the 1 year anniversary of its release within the past couple weeks here. So it was a good time watching it. I'm actually pretty excited to talk about it today.
I am too. Something that is not I guess, integral to what we're talking about Kenobi with today, but something that I felt just watching it, I guess to sort of tease what we'll be talking about. I just feel like it took so long to watch this show when it was coming out, and it's only 6 episodes. And so
Mm-hmm.
I just binged all of it, you know what I mean? And it was just like,
Right.
boom. It's the whole thing is only what, like 3.5 hours, maybe
Something like
something.
that. Yeah.
So not too bad of a watch if anyone is looking to do a rewatch. Highly recommend. But yeah, that's what we'll be discussing, breaking down, and talking about today, 1 year removed from the premiere of the show. But before we talk about Kenobi, we've got a little bit of Star Wars news, as we typically like to do on the pod, discuss the current events in the world of Star Wars. And we got a big one, Joey. We got a big one. Ahsoka news.
Finally, we did it. We just had to wait long enough.
I was really grateful because, as you know, I'll be gone for a portion of the beginning of August. And so I was like, "Please don't come out while I'm out of the country. Please don't come out while I'm out of the
Oh, you're gonna
country."
be out of the country? I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll be out of the country from, like, basically the first week of August,
Oh, okay.
so I get back, like, on the 7th or 8th, I wanna say, something like
Right,
that. I
right.
was like, "As long as it's not the first week of August,
Well,
I'm
we could
chilling."
just get you a VPN and then you could, log in
No,
back
that's
to the
but the
United
place I'm
States.
staying doesn't even have internet, so I was
Oh,
like,
well, that's a
I
little bit
I was
harder.
gonna I was gonna be in trouble if it came out then. I have to avoid spoilers for a week.
Well,
Ugh.
it'd be pretty easy if you don't have internet, so.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Touche, yeah. But the date was officially released for Ahsoka, August 23rd being that day. What day of the week is that? Do we know
Actually,
off the
that's a
top
great
of our
question,
heads?
actually. I don't know. I'll take a look while you're talking.
All right, August 23rd being the premiere date for Ahsoka. The long-awaited date has finally been released. We knew it was gonna be in August, but, now we have the date, and probably at 3 AM Eastern, 12
Yep.
midnight Pacific, if I had to imagine the
Yes.
release time for those of you that are can't wait until, like, the next morning to watch it sort of fans, as I am admittedly that way
And
sometimes.
and once again, it's on Wednesday, so it fits in right with our Hoth Hangout schedules on
Nice,
Thursdays.
nice, nice. So we can expect that we'll watch it together either late Wednesday or, well, depending on your perspective of what's late and what's
Right,
early,
yeah.
either
Right.
like at 2 AM on Wednesday or sometime on Wednesday, and then uh, have that video be released either Wednesday evening or Thursday morning. We might do a reaction and an
Yeah,
episode on it, I imagine.
kinda like what we used to do back in. Remember when
Right.
we used to watch shows,
When
like,
we
every
still had
week?
new
And
Star Wars content, yeah.
that's crazy. It's coming soon,
It's
it's coming
coming
soon, I'm
back.
excited.
Yeah, we're, officially, like, 2.5 months away from the release of Ahsoka, and, I'm excited. Along with the announcement of the release date for Ahsoka, we also got the covers of Empire 2 different covers of Empire magazine released, and I guess this is also full disclosure, producer Gibbo had to go into work early today, so Joey and I are throwing it back to sort of the old school style of podcast where we don't have the rotating images on screen as we're recording, and we're kind of referencing stuff outside of how we normally would. So maybe they'll be put in post. So you may be seeing it if you're watching the video version of the podcast. But these two magazine covers, one of them, the first one, the image of Ahsoka with the two lightsabers, just quintessentially the reason I love that character so much. It's just
Yeah.
awesome. And then the second cover of which kind of being the more ominous one with the silhouette of the Thrawn
Mhm.
head kind of looming over Ahsoka as we know him to be the main villain and antagonist of the Ahsoka series.
Now let me ask you this: that second one, are you feeling in the background a little world between worlds action there
Ooh,
with the spheres around there and stuff? That's kind of what I'm feeling when I see a little bit of that.
I can see that. I could see it. That's also something that I would assume we'll be talking about a lot as we're watching
Hmm.
Ahsoka, is how much are they going to play into that Rebels style or that Rebels storyline? Because I think I would like them to explore it, but I think a lot of fans of any show or any, any big multi-market thing like Star Wars, when it starts to tiptoe into, like, time travel territory,
Hmm.
you're like, "Ah, don't mess it up, please."
Yeah, right, right. But I
So
think they will get into some more Rebels lore there. I mean, obviously they bring in Hera, you bring in Sabine.
mm,
So and there was a photo that kind of was going around with Sabine with the short hair, and
mhm,
then Ahsoka with the I forget if it's gray or if it's a white kind of tunic or outfit, and
yeah,
so that's very much like how Rebels ended, with
right.
those kinds of looks, because you see later on that Sabine has like the longer hair, so at some point in the show, so you would assume it just kind of grows out from that point in time at the end of Rebels.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a new trailer recently too. Did you watch that by
Yeah,
chance?
that's right. Yeah, and I think that was the one that was shown at Celebration, or like the
Yes.
snippets that were
That's my understanding,
that
yeah.
we hadn't seen, particularly the scenes with Sabine with the lightsaber,
Right.
um, which we believe is Ezra's lightsaber, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So
So
and we know we're gonna be seeing
I can't
at
wait.
least a hologram of Ezra in the
Right.
show.
Yes. I
I hope they
cannot wait.
surprise us and he's actually, like, there in the
There.
show.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I can't wait. I'm so excited for that show. Do we know how many episodes that is?
I can't remember if that's been officially announced or not. I
I
wanna
wonder if yeah.
say 8,
I
but
wonder if
I
that'll
can
be in the Empire magazine, which actually, as of this recording, came out today. So hopefully,
true,
we'll be
yes.
able to actually find it this time. Last time I was trying to find some Empire magazines, I couldn't find any. So hopefully, we could be able to pick it up this time.
It is 8 episodes.
Okay,
The
nice,
premiere being on the 23rd of August, the finale being on the 11th of October.
cool. Any run times yet?
No, I didn't see run times,
Okay,
but,
they're 10 minute
if they
shorts.
yeah. If they give us, like, some 38-minute run times, I'm gonna be a little bit salty. I need at least 50 minutes per episode,
Yeah,
Star
yeah.
Wars,
They you
'cause all
th-
I know all the Disney execs are listening right now.
yeah, they seem to be like up and like all over the place with like run times. It's never like every episode is, which
Yeah,
is interesting, right? I mean, I've never really
and
seen any other shows do that.
right, and I mean, that could even kinda be a transition into Obi-Wan too, because that's
Hmm.
how some of like, the first episode of Obi-Wan, granted, there's, like, the montage at the beginning, is what, like, 53,
Hmm.
54
Right.
minutes?
Yes.
And I clicked on that first episode to do our rewatch, and I was like, "Dang, that's longer than I remember." And then there's a certain episode in there that's like 32 minutes or something.
Yeah.
I was
Right.
like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Oh,
Sounds about right.
yeah, so anyways, to wrap up the Ahsoka stuff, premieres officially now we know on August 23rd. We will definitely be doing a watch, what are we calling it? Not a recap, a
Reaction.
reaction, thank
Reaction.
you. Reaction.
Reaction.
A reaction kind of not full podcast episode, but sort of like a condensed reaction of the episode, and then probably doing a podcast about the premiere as well. And depending upon the show, I mean, this is the show that I'm probably most excited for. Something that Joey and I will have to discuss on whether we're going to do a reaction every week or not. But
Right.
there, uh, there is a potential for that. So stay tuned, and maybe that'll come to fruition even. Well, having become very excited about all the Ahsoka news in the midst of last week while we were doing our Obi Wan Kenobi rewatch. Um, I would say between both of those things, I just had a generally pretty good week last week.
Good.
um, I forgot how much in my memory. Okay, let me just say this because I think this is important to discuss going into Kenobi. I think fans were very I don't even know if split is the right word. I think a lot of fans came away from Kenobi particularly not satisfied with the show, but I didn't have that same sentiment when I did my rewatch.
Hmm.
And maybe I did on my first watch through, but I don't know. Did you have any of that on either watch through,
So
either the first time or this one that we just
so I
did?
think going into this one, I was really wondering, like, is this a rewatchable show? Like, that's what I
Right.
was, if because the big reveals were, third sister Riva was actually youngling, and you kind of know that already, and you're kind of like watching it knowing this entire time. You're like, is it still
Yeah.
pretty captivating?
Like
I
you
think that
figure
was
it
one
out in
big
episode
thing.
2 and you're like,
Right? Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Exactly. And even like, um, the one thing I really did forget about was the chemistry between um Obi-Wan and Leia.
Yes.
They how like well they work together.
Mhm.
And we'll get into like, each of these characters here in a bit, but I think that's what really that's something that I really don't remember as much. Um Obviously that being the big storyline. And but I do what I do remember is kind of going into this thinking, well, this is going to be a story about Obi-Wan on Tatooine the entire time. And it's going to be like how he protected Luke and everything like that. So that's kind of where I thought this was going. But then
Mhm.
they completely flipped it on its head and said, "No, we're going to, see how he is with Leia instead." So I thought that was seeing it now from that viewpoint. I'm like, "Oh, that was really smart of them." I think that's it was really smart of them to go into that area because that's I don't think anybody was expecting that.
Yeah. I think I have conflicting thoughts on that actually, because their chemistry is easily the best part of this show, I would say.
Mhm.
As much as we all love to watch, like, the Kenobi versus Vader,
Mhm.
lightsaber battles and, like, that interaction between master and apprentice, the most surprising element of Kenobi, the show, is the fact that I don't know how old she was when it was filmed, like 10 maybe? I don't know. I'm a bad
I
assessment
think
of.
she's actually 10 now, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think she's 10,
So
either 10
probably,
or
like,
11, 10 or 11 now, I think.
okay, so, like, 8 or 9 when the probably
Yeah,
8
yeah.
when this was filmed. Like, she's out there acting like she's a seasoned actor, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And while I don't have particularly strong feelings about some of the scenes that she is involved with in the show, like, as an 8-year-old acting in, like, this mainline Disney show, she, like, blew me away, both the first time
Yeah,
I watched it and on my rewatch.
right. And one
So
thing I did wanna mention too is the directing of it,
mhm.
and writing for it because they showed some, like, actual real emotions for a kid. Like, you don't
Yeah.
if you think about it, if you're an adult, you're writing for adults for the most part. You don't think about, like, what's a kid going through right now? There was a part where she was, like, missing home. Like,
Yes.
she was homesick and things like that. I'm like, that makes sense. It doesn't always have to be like this brave warrior, child. She could have like real emotions as a little kid. So I thought that was really, really cool that they wrote those particular scenes for her.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, the great casting on her. I thought that was really well done, and she just did a great job.
Yeah. Remind me to talk about the specific scene in episode 2,
Okay,
because I just wanted to briefly touch on just the beginning of the show in general, and then I wanna come back to talking about Leia as well.
okay,
Um,
okay. Wait,
so
hold on
I
1 second. I
yes.
have to wait. Something came up with my wife real quick, so I have to step away for a sec.
No, you're fine. This is gonna be
Okay,
a cut in the
this is a
podcast, and
cut.
we'll
This is
come
a cut
back.
right here.
And we're back from our short break. We need to get, like, sponsors or something for the
That's right.
podcast.
Yes.
That'll be where we insert them in the future.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Get HelloFresh here.
HelloFresh, yes, use code Hoth Hangout.
That's right.
Um, before we before we stop for a second, we were just about to discuss the cool montage at the beginning of the first episode of the show, which I had completely forgotten was even a part of the episode.
Mhm.
So I think what that does well is that, if you were like happen to be someone out there who had like never seen the prequels or anything like that, and you're like, who's this, who's this Anakin and Obi-Wan guy that are the main characters of of Kenobi, it kind of provides that backstory all the way from. There's a lot more from episode 1 than I remember there being.
Hmm.
So I enjoyed that foundational point, especially as someone who probably enjoys the prequels more than the average Star Wars fan. I was like, "Oh, this is nice to kinda, like, have this all just be," even if you know it, whether you know it or you don't know it, it's a nice refresher or an introduction
Hmm.
into the show if you don't know it, so
Right.
I appreciated that. Even the Qui-Gon tease that was in the and then, like, does not fully come to fruition till later, but we can talk about that later. Um, Last thing I wanted to say on episode 1, just as a standalone thing, what did you think of the Order 66 scene? 'Cause I had almost forgot about that too.
Yeah, I mean, because it opens with that, right? Is it
Yeah.
opens with that part?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that was really cool to see. What we come to find is like young Reva, in there, and just seeing that because we don't see anything from the prequels of actually kind of what happens. We I guess we did see our select Jedi, unfortunately get offed by Order 66, but
Mhm.
to see even more, like just to see more of that stuff is just, I don't want to say cool because it's kind of weird to say it's cool to see a Jedi being, but
It's
it's
a different
definitely,
perspective on something
yeah,
we already knew happened.
right, to see that. And I mean, and we've seen it. This isn't, this ended up not being the only time that we'll see it. Now we saw it from Grogu's point of view as well in the Mandalorian. So I mean, it just seems like this is a, we'll be seeing more and more points of view of this particular event in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, yeah, it seems to be kind of a trend recently with a lot of their shows where they show Order 66 from
Hmm.
different perspectives of whatever characters or whatever the show's characters are. So yeah, it's kind of a fun, well, again, I don't know if I should use the word fun, but kind of a
Right.
unique beginning.
Yes.
I'll say that. So, something that we see kind of throughout Kenobi, and especially throughout shows like Rebels, is this inclusion of Inquisitors.
Hmm.
Which, for those of you who are maybe like don't watch Star Wars TV shows, like what the heck is an Inquisitor? Like, why are there other people with red lightsabers who aren't Sith? Well, this is my 15-second spiel on what an Inquisitor is. So, essentially, these are
15
like
seconds.
15 seconds. All right, here we go. These are like basically servants of Darth Vader, who most of which were previously light-sided Jedi, who at the time of Order 66, rather than going down with the Jedi, were kind of like, all right, we'll serve the Empire instead. And so they're all more or less dark side Force users who serve Vader and kind of do his bidding. And that's sort of where we end up at the beginning of Kenobi. Is there's, I guess, Reva, who's the third sister, the fifth brother, who is actually the one, if you have seen Star Wars Rebels, the one that you see within that show. And I think the other one in this show is is it the fourth
I
sister,
think
I wanna say?
fourth sister is right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think she shows up in Rebels though.
no, I don't think so. I think the one in Rebels
There's a
is
ninth sister in Rebels, I
I
believe. Is
thought
that right?
I thought the
Oh
ninth one
no,
was the one in the
I'm
Star
sorry.
Wars video game, the
Yes, you're right.
Fallen or,
Fallen
Jedi
Order.
Survivor.
Yeah, Fallen Order slash Jedi Survivor. Also, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the one in the Rebels, I'm pretty sure is the 7th, I wanna say.
Yeah.
So we
Who's
get
voiced by Sarah Michelle Gellar, I believe.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Huh, interesting. Side fun fact there.
Yeah. For our next trivia,
Yes. I need to improve. Uh, so Riva, the third sister, the fifth brother, and the fourth sister, who is kind of not as probably the least important Inquisitor within the Kenobi show. Then the Grand Inquisitor, of course. So they are all at this point in time. This is 10 years removed from Revenge of the Sith. So they're still hunting the last remnants of the Jedi. In fact, that's how the first episode opens up. Um, but Riva has this like ambition for still wanting to find Kenobi. Did you feel like this was fleshed out well enough in the show? Um, Not necessarily just in the first episode, but like when it was all said and done, did you feel like Riva's motivations for wanting to find Kenobi felt like backed up enough or justified enough?
I think at its surface it was like it
Hmm.
makes sense, that she would want to find Kenobi and kind of in that way where she's kind of angry about it a little bit, but
Yeah, I guess
But there was also like I would it made more sense kind of at the end of it where she was more like wanting to get back at Anakin. That kind of made
right,
more sense to me than anything really about Kenobi, you know.
right,
And
which
if
is a problem I have about the last episode, but
right, would make sense. But like so the Kenobi part of it, like if she was looking to find him to team up with him to get Anakin, then that's where I'm like that makes sense, right? That is more of, but the way that they portrayed her was very much like just to get Kenobi because Kenobi he left us and whatever. And I don't know, I'm not I wasn't really completely sold on that piece. But the fact that she wanted to get Kenobi, that makes sense to me in some way. Um, they could have been a little bit better. I wouldn't say I was completely satisfied with that. And as you're about to say, with that last episode, I'm like, why, you know, like,
right.
what
Like
was the point of going after Luke at all?
right. Like, I don't have an issue with where they ended up, and I don't have an issue with where they started. Like, the path she takes to get like, the whole time, she's just driven by hate for him. And, like, at least when I was watching the show, both the mainly the second time because 'cause I've already seen it, I was really examining that. I was like,
Sure.
"Okay, why is it that she hates him so much? Like, why is it that she's going after him? Why does she want to get to Luke so badly?"
Mm-hmm.
And, ultimately, it's all because she hates Anakin,
Right.
like, because he, slaughtered the
What
younglings. It's
and
like
was there any indication to her that Luke is Anakin's son? I might have missed that because that's a pretty big thing for her to know. You know what I mean?
right.
Because you would assume that the only reason for me, my assumption was she was going after Luke because she's Anakin's son. I may have just made that leap, whatever. Because there's no other real reason for her to go after him. Like I just
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like,
because
I guess I didn't
she sees the hollow from Bale, the very
mhm.
broken up hollow, and she's like,
Which
I'm gonna go over there.
that's another, like, kind of this is really nitpicking at this point, but the way she, like, figures she'll lure Kenobi out is by going into the archives, seeing, "Oh, they were connected 10 years ago. I'm gonna kidnap his daughter and just hope that Kenobi hears about it, or
Right,
that
right,
he's
yeah,
even in the same system as this thing
yeah,
going
yeah,
on."
yeah,
It's like, I mean, it worked, but
yeah.
also, like,
No,
that
I think that's where, as Star Wars fans, we're just like, I mean, I guess let's,
I mean, I could
yeah,
accept it. I just was in my head, I'm like, "Okay, whatever." You know what I mean?
exactly.
I guess.
But
So
I mean, all that to say, the Inquisitors as a whole, just a super cool crew to see, because
yeah.
as you said, they're not Sith, they're Dark Force, they're Dark Force users essentially, and to see that, but not also be a Sith, but kind of also have interesting characters like Reva, really, because she's kind of she's truly like in the middle, because
Mhm.
she couldn't do that to children at the same time, but she'll hunt out Jedi, and so I think she is an interesting character in herself. But and I guess lightsabers don't kill people when they go straight through them anymore.
Have you read about, like, all the theories why when she, uh, supposedly kills the Grand Inquisitor and then he comes back 2 episodes later, like, why it doesn't kill him?
Mm-mm.
So I think his species has more than 1 heart.
Oh.
Now I don't know if that's canonically why he survives,
Mm-hmm.
but that is postulated as being
Gotcha.
perhaps the reason for it.
And she also has a second heart then as
I
well.
don't I don't know about her.
Didn't know.
Yeah. I can't explain that one away. Sorry, Disney.
But other than
But
that, I mean, Inquisitor is super cool.
yeah, and a note on the Grand Inquisitor too. When that happened in that episode, I think well, not on my rewatch, obviously, but on our first watch through when it came out, it was like, what?
Hmm.
The first thing I did was like, when does Kenobi take place? Because it's like
Yeah,
before
right.
Rebels, but you're like, wait, the Grand Inquisitor
How'd this
is yeah,
happen?
yeah. So either and do you remember what else was going on at the time when this came out? People were like, "Oh, maybe this is the first, like, different Grand Inquisitor."
Oh, right, yeah, yeah.
Like, it was, like, a different person or something.
It's like the Snoke version of the Grand Inquisitor.
Yeah. He does look a little his face looks a little
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of
oblong.
his look, to be honest, in the show. he looks
Yeah,
much cooler in Rebels, but I mean it's animated series, so it's kind of hard to have those aspects of him like super skinny and tall and
true.
but I
Yeah.
mean I thought the actor did great.
Yeah, I didn't have any issues with it. I loved all the Inquisitor actually, I think I liked this might be a hot take, but I liked Reva as an actor. I just thought the
Oh yeah.
character was poorly written.
Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree. I think
Yeah,
there was definitely she did a great job. I just yeah, there was a little bit more that you wanted from just her character, but I think she did really good.
yeah, yeah.
She brought something
Which
different.
it's the same thing, like, this happens with everything. Basically anything that Disney has produced, Star Wars-wise, almost everything, it feels like there's always at least one character in every show or movie
Hmm.
where fans tend to, like, just pounce on that character and
Right, right,
criticize
yeah.
the actor, like and it's not their fault, like,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
they're doing a great performance with what they're provided and what they're given, like,
Right, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, I'll get off my soapbox there, but
I agree though.
any more thoughts on the Inquisitors before we kinda I wanted to tie it back into Leia, what we were talking about earlier too.
Yeah, let's go back to Leia right now then.
Okay, Leia, fantastic child actor in this show. I wish I knew her name off the top of my head. Um,
Vivian something, I want to say.
Vivian? Vivian,
I
shout out to you because
I could
you
be way
were
wrong. Let's see.
one of yeah, it's like Joyce
Yeah,
Smith.
right.
Uh,
Lyra Blair.
nice, it was Vivian. Shout out to Vivian, what was it, Lila Blair?
Lyra. L Y A
Lyra Blair.
L Y R A.
One of the bright spots of Kenobi,
Mhm.
but also the scenes in which she is involved sometimes are like, "What?" Like, this is Jedi Master Obi Wan Kenobi losing a child, and, like, his resort to losing the child is like, "Leia, wait, wait, Leia." Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
come
yeah.
on. Come on, Obi-Wan,
Well,
like
also remember when she was getting kidnapped, she was zigzagging, breaking ankles on these
yeah,
guys
I forgot about
as
that.
well. They could not catch her.
These, like, professional kidnap poacher guys are
Yeah.
just, like, having trouble catching a eight-year-old. But, I mean, I can get over that. Again, the actor did an incredible job. Small note on episode 2 as well. There's a point when Leia and Obi-Wan first meet, and he's referring to himself as Ben, and it's after she has noted that he has a lightsaber, and she sees this, and he says his name is Ben, and you know what her first reaction is? I don't remember hearing this on my first watch through, by the way.
I must have missed it on my second.
She says, "Ben? That's not a Jedi name."
Oh, yes, yes, I did hear that, yeah.
And in my heart, I was like, "Yes, it is.
Oh, no.
I am
I'm
a
sorry,
Jedi."
Ben. Sorry, Ben. No, you're not. We've discussed this. You're a
That's
Sith.
right. I guess I'm a Sith, yeah.
You're closer to Inquisitor, if anything.
Yeah, I'll take it. I prefer gray
Yeah,
Jedi,
yeah.
but
Okay.
I'll take what I can.
Yeah, and we kind of mentioned it before, just the chemistry she had with Ian McGregor. Like she had a moment there where she asked him, like, are you my real father?" And I'm like, "Oh wow!" Like, and that kind of goes to the writing, right? It's just like,
Mhm,
yeah, she doesn't know who the her true parents are, her
yeah,
biological parents are, and if she has anybody that somebody who even mentions her parents, of course she's going to be like, wait, are you my parents? And so
mhm,
I thought she did really good, and I was very happy, and like I said, surprised with even this story going down this road.
yeah. I think episode 2 is also where we meet Haja, isn't that right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Who is I I will be honest, the first time I watched Kenobi, I did not like this character.
Okay.
I was like, "This is trying way too hard to be funny,"
Yeah, I can see
uh,
that.
but it grew on me on my second watch through.
Yeah.
And, I guess I appreciated his role more especially at the end, like, when Obi-Wan is like, "Promise me you'll protect her and get her to Alderaan," or I think it's Alderaan where he
Yeah.
says.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the swindler, kind of cheater, jokester turned into, semi-hero towards
Yeah.
the end, I guess.
Yeah.
I appreciated his role more on the second watch through. Oh, by the way, did you quite catch the, Quinlan Voss
I
reference?
did. Yes, during the
I did not remember that from
oh,
my first
really? Yeah,
watch
yeah.
through.
When they were
Yeah.
going through one of the safe houses, and it looks like people would just be writing like little things on the wall. It sounded like Quinlan Voss was one of them,
Mhm.
former Jedi.
Yeah, I think this is later on after they've escaped to, I believe it was Mapuzo. I might be
Hmm.
pronouncing that wrong. The mining planet. And then there's that gang of stormtroopers that come up on them, and they're about to get them. And then is it what's her name? Tala,
Hmm.
the Imperial officer turned ally in that
Hmm.
situation, takes them into the uh the network tunnels or whatever it is, and that's where the I wanna learn more about Quinlan Voss. I feel like your Quinlan Voss expertise is very high.
I mean, it's probably because he was in that one book with Asajj,
Dark Disciple.
Dark Disciple. Which, have you read
Yeah.
that?
No, but it's on
Oh,
my shelf, and
it
it's one of
is
the
so good.
really?
It's so, and he got a little Dooku action in there too. Yeah, you got to read that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, during the Clone Wars, isn't it? Or
Hmm.
no, I guess predates the Clone Wars
Pre
probably.
uh, does it predate? I forget where it is in
It's
time, but
probably between 1 and 2 if I had to
yeah,
guess.
but yeah, it's a good one. Definitely a good one.
Or I don't know. Anyways, I guess I have to read it to know that for
Yeah,
sure.
right. I've read it. I don't remember it, but yeah, yeah. Quinlan Voss, kind of a pretty cool Jedi. We should get to know him. Maybe that's what we should do. Is like focus on like one Jedi we don't really know about, and just like do a deep dive into
Deep dive on a specific
into
Jedi?
specific, like, kind of not obscure. I don't want to call Quinlan obscure, but not seen on film too much, and
Sure, yeah. I mean, he's definitely a step up from obscure.
yeah, exactly.
Obscure Jedi. Ready? Jarl
Poof.
Poof?
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
See, you knew who he was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Uh, what did you think of Tala in this show?
I thought Tala was I thought Tala was pretty cool. It's I always like those, the people. My favorite are the spies, the people who are
Yes.
on the Empire side, but not really on the Empire side. But you always wonder, like, are they going to break? Are they going, what's
Mhm.
going to happen to them? Are they going to be the first one out? So I really enjoyed her character, and kind of her unfortunate ending there. I just,
Mhm.
but sometimes people don't make it out of Star Wars. We've seen it, but sometimes they do for reasons we don't understand.
Yeah. Speaking of the spy scene, one of my I think the underrated scenes in this show is when Riva confronts her after she's providing a
Hmm.
distraction for Obi-Wan and Leia to escape, and Riva is like, "You're a spy." And she's like, "Of course I am." You're
Yeah.
like, "What?"
Yeah, yeah. That's not
Like,
the normal answer.
right, she plays it off really well, like, "Yeah, I've been this Imperial spy, like, I've infiltrated their network, and I am, like now I'm
Yeah.
giving you the information." So, does that make her like a triple agent? I don't really
Yeah,
know how that
right.
works, but
When she said that, I'm like, "Wait, are you playing them too? Like, what's going on?" I got a
yeah,
little confused, but no, I thought she was really good.
yeah. And then a couple other small characters that we wanted to also mention, the droids in this show, Lola.
Mhm.
I enjoy Lola, although I don't know
Mhm.
where Lola would rank on my, tier list of favorite droids.
Cute little droid though.
Cute little droid, yeah, and, a cute companion to Leia as well. Ice Cube's son making an appearance, I think, in the last 2 episodes
Mhm.
of the show.
O'Shea Jackson Jr. as Roken.
Mhm. Yep, yep. And then Ewan McGregor's, daughter, Esther,
Yeah.
making the appearance as who I like to call the Kenobi version of the Death Sticks
The Death
guy
Sticks
from
Eater, right?
Attack of
Yeah,
the Clones.
absolutely.
Yeah. "Yeah, you
Absolutely.
wanna buy some Death Sticks?"
That's right.
Although I think she's trying to sell him spice. Does that sound
Yeah, it was
right?
spice, yeah, some different types of spice.
What do you think spice like, what does that mean in the Star Wars universe? Is that, like, code for a specific substance? I don't know.
I think it is, but yeah, I think we don't wanna discuss that on this podcast.
Yeah. That's what other Star Wars podcasts are
That's
for.
right.
Um, as a whole, though, I think something we haven't touched on yet, and which is probably something that people think of in retrospect, having seen Kenobi as a show, is the dynamic between Obi-Wan and Anakin or Vader. Um, how did you feel like the hype of that going into the show before it released for the first time lived up to it? And maybe upon your rewatch, did your same memory of that level of interaction and action
Mhm.
between master and former apprentice, live up to what your memory of it was, I guess?
I think the first thing we have to talk about is kind of where Obi-Wan's at the beginning of this series, where he's kind of down on his luck almost, it feels like, and he's just kind of the everyday man, not a
Yeah.
force user. It really reminded me of, and I know this may be a hot take, but a little bit of Luke in Last Jedi, where he's just kind of,
Yeah.
not who we remember him to be. But unlike what some people think of the Last Jedi, and he's able to kind of overcome all of that pretty quickly,
Right.
and get back to his his Obi-Wan ways. I mean, for goodness sake, he ends the whole entire series with "Hello there," So I mean, we know he's back, right? Um, so to kind of see that arc, him kind of getting back into being used to being this like incredible Jedi, was I think was something to see for sure. Now you kind of throw in Vader or Anakin in the middle of it. I really liked. You could tell that they really work well together.
Mhm.
Whether it was in the flashback scene. By the
Great
way,
scene, by the way. I love the flash.
great scene. By the way, but hate to say it. I mean, Anakin, you just look too old to be in that. In like, it just didn't make sense. I'm like,
To
you could
be
have.
fair, it's like 20 years later, and they're doing a
Which I
flashback scene.
totally understand, but look at what they did with Luke in Boba Fett or
Oh,
whatever.
so you think they should have, like, face swapped him
A
sort
little
of thing?
bit, not even
Okay.
face swap, but like they could have aged him down a little bit.
Yeah. The Robert De Niro in, The Irishman. Have you seen that movie?
Exactly. Yeah, I have. So just just a little bit. I mean, we're asking 20 years here. We could have done it.
Yeah, he
Um,
does look really old in that
yeah,
scene.
yeah. And like he's definitely not a Padawan.
Right.
If it was like the long hair Revenge of the Sith, maybe,
Mhm.
um, you might have been able to pull it off, but not Attack of the Clones. There's no way. There's no way that that's that Anakin. Anyway, I I think they I think they just work really well together. Some of the lines that Vader says is like, "I am what you made me," and
Mhm.
just like there's
You
so
didn't
much.
kill Anakin
Yeah,
Skywalker. I
I did.
did.
Just things like that. It just gives you a little bit more, and I think you and I are both in this kind of love it when they add to the lore. They add like a little bit more
Mhm.
to kind of their storyline, and that's kind of what I wanted. And to see Obi-Wan kind of lay the hammer on him again eventually. But I will say, Anakin got his, Vader got his way back, his way with Obi-Wan dragging him through the fire like that. I was like, ooh, that is some revenge right there. you know. Um,
Would you say it was Revenge of the Sith?
interesting, interesting. Maybe. But I think the dynamic was really cool. It was interesting to see like Obi-Wan kind of avoid him at first. When they were
Yeah.
their first fight. But
He
again,
runs
that's kind of
away.
yeah, like that's where he was at though.
Right.
He wasn't ready for that, but then he was able to kind of figure out himself again and then go back to fight him. So I thought it was very cool. What did you think about their dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, I love Ewan and Hayden, like, arguably my favorite 2
Mm-hmm.
actors from Star Wars, just in general,
Mm-hmm.
um, especially Ewan. I think they work really well together. I'd be curious to know how much of the in suit Vader
Yeah,
scenes were Hayden Christensen. I think if I recall, I read at one point when the show came out that I think he actually did do a lot of the in suit scenes,
interesting.
which might seem inconsequential, but I think it adds some element of a dynamic between 2 actors on screen, especially in the last episode, like, after his mask gets, cut. It is, it's such a, like, emotional scene, like, where, the lines that we talked about earlier. By the way, one of the favorite this may have been, like, a Reddit thing originally, it wouldn't surprise me. I think I've told you this before. So, the side of the helmet that Obi-Wan, like, slices and reveals Vader's face is one side, right? And then in Twilight of an Apprentice, for those of you that don't know, that is the episode of Star Wars Rebels where, Ahsoka and Vader have this kinda epic lightsaber battle that concludes with Ezra pulling Ahsoka through the, I always wanna say War of the Worlds. I know that's
Yeah.
not what it's
World
called.
between worlds.
The World Between Worlds, yeah. Uh, but prior to that, Ahsoka also slices open part of Vader's helmet, and it's the other half, not the half that's from the Kenobi show.
Thing.
And so there was like a theory that had come about that it was like, the three most important people to Anakin's redemption, arguably, are Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Luke. And that Obi-Wan was able to like take off half the helmet but couldn't bring him back. Ahsoka was able to take off half the helmet and couldn't bring him back. But Luke, who like actually removes his helmet, is the one that like fully brings him back from the dark
My
side.
God, I got the shivers. Just got
I mean,
shivers.
it's pretty cool, and I don't
It's a
know if
pretty good
that was,
one.
like, intended, in that way.
No, it's in my head canon now. It's too late.
It's headcanon. I pronounce it headcanon, yeah. But anyways, so a little bit of symbolism perhaps with the side they chose to reveal with Vader's
Mm-hmm.
face there in the episode, but, um, yeah, I love all the dynamics between Vader and Kenobi, and I think that was the part of me that was kind of, I guess, hoping for a second season of the show, but I'm not mad that there's not because I
Hmm.
think it ended in a way that feels satisfying.
Absolutely.
I just think it felt like to a lot of fans that were expecting it to be this epic, 12-episode show where there's just constantly showdowns between Vader and Kenobi. I mean, that's not really what the show is. It's more so about not even Kenobi most of the time, but just like sometimes supplementary characters like
Hmm.
Riva and Leia.
Right.
It's arguably just as much both of their show as it is Obi-Wan's.
Oh, absolutely. Right.
So, maybe fans didn't get exactly what they wanted from this show, but, nonetheless, I'm not complaining about it, and upon watching it a second time, I would say I definitely have more of a like for it and for sure a greater appreciation
I
too.
would agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was just on the second on the rewatch of it. Like I said, going into it, I wasn't sure if I would enjoy it as much because I kind of knew the big spoiler in it. But there was a lot of things, like you said, just I just didn't remember about it. I'm like, oh, that was kind of a cool thing, and just seeing how there's like even like little tidbits. Like there was the actor that plays Roken, who is again Ice Cube's son. He kind of
Mhm.
mentioned that his wife was. It sounds like she was a force sensitive user, and
I didn't catch
and
that. Good
yeah,
catch.
and the Inquisitors got her. So you're just like, you just kind of hear that kind of stuff, and you're just like, oh wow, just because they're like, oh, what's that storyline, and just the story of just the Inquisitors in general, and yeah, I think the Inquisitors really do bring a lot of good stories into the Star Wars world.
I would agree, which also is a good segue towards the last question I wanna ask you about Obi-Wan Kenobi. Uh, what character or story, if you had to pick anyone from Kenobi, maybe I mean, I guess you could pick Obi-Wan as your answer if you want to. But what character or story would you like to see unfold, like from the characters in this show, if they were to expound upon them in future Star Wars entries?
I think it's a pretty obvious one, Reva.
Mhm.
I mean, we kind of left her in a spot where she's like no longer wants to be a part of Darth Vader's world as an Inquisitor. But obviously she's very powerful. She is a great user of the Force. You can't just
Yeah,
like have that out there and just not wonder like, well, wonder what she's doing, you know. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I would love to hear more, even like as a precursor to this show, like where what happened between Order 66 and now with her. I mean, I could see that being a great book, great comic book. I don't know if it would be a full fledged like TV series, but I would just love to know about her story.
yeah. I appreciate the fact that you said that because I think there's a lot of people out there who don't really like her, and again, I don't think it's anything that is well-founded, like,
Right.
I think it would do her character a lot of good to have it expounded upon and, like, us to learn more about her. If you had to pick, though, would you rather have something that's post-Kenobi or pre-Kenobi and learn more about how she turned to the dark
I
side?
think I think if I had to pick between the two, I'd do Post. Um, just because we have an idea of where she ended up after Order 66, obviously, as an
Mhm.
Inquisitor. Um, so to see where she, because I mean, as of now, there's nothing other references to her. I would love to see her in, maybe references, in What's the name? Is it Dawn of the Jedi? Is that what the time
Yeah.
around the original trilogy is? Is that right?
Around the original trilogy,
I forgot the name of the era.
like the Rise of the Empire, is
Yeah,
that what
Rise of
you
the
mean?
Empire. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just yeah. So I mean, obviously she was kind of a part of that, but now she's going to be essentially defecting from it. So I'd be interested
Mhm.
in seeing where she ends up.
Yeah, I would tend to lean toward that same direction. The other 2 options that I thought of, one, I don't know how interested I would be in a whole show about this character, but again, it's the characters that are, like, kinda toe the line that I also am sorta interested in. Tala, I really
Oh yeah,
liked,
that was my
and
second one.
I would be intrigued, even if it's not a full show, to see her, like, inserted into different shows
Yeah.
throughout future Star Wars entries. I hope we get to see her more at least, you know, pre-Kenobi. Uh,
Yeah, Post Kenobi would be kind of boring.
yeah. Yeah. But the other one that I think would be really cool, hear me out. I want a show that is, um, maybe 12 episodes,
Oh,
and each episode is, like, half an hour long, and it's the whole episode is the backstory on a specific Inquisitor, and
okay.
the show is called Inquisitors. And every episode is
I
like
don't.
how the 5th brother came to be the 5th brother, or how the ninth sister became to the
Mhm,
ninth sister, like, how that, progressed and how that happened, and then, like, how the Grand Inquisitor, even though we have a little bit of an idea, he used to be a Jedi Temple guard, but how he fully became the Grand
mhm.
Inquisitor. I think an Inquisitor show would be so cool, and I
I don't.
don't know if that's on the horizon at all. It probably is not, but,
I don't like
um
that you put that in my head. Like I want that now too.
Hey, Disney, if you're listening, we need an Inquisitor show.
Right.
They've been throwing more Inquisitor stuff in a lot of their
That's true.
stuff recently. So all the video games and of course
Mhm.
Rebels, but Kenobi as well. So and then we'll probably be getting more with Ahsoka too, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So lots of Inquisitors on the horizon and hopefully more. We'll see if that idea ever comes to fruition or
Yeah.
not.
Just tweet. Can we tweet Bob Iger? I'm sure these
I think
or
he'll see
DM
it.
him. I'm sure his DMs are open.
Yeah. Well, I don't know exactly what time we're at for this episode because we had a short break in the middle, but I think we did okay on time. Those of you listening can obviously have a better idea than I do at this point. But next week on the Hoth Hangout podcast, we will be doing a tier list or more or less our rankings of different Star Wars species throughout the galaxy. So uh, that's going to be a fun one. I can just see us like next week we're gonna get Ewoks and be like, "All right, automatic S tier for the Ewoks."
Yeah, we'll just put that in already. I mean,
Yeah, we're starting next week's episode with Ewoks already on the S tier. So,
that's right.
but yeah, be sure to tune in next week to the next episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast, where, as I said, we'll be doing a tier list on those various Star Wars species. The Hoth Hangout podcast is available every Thursday morning, typically. This episode, of course, being released on a Friday, but typically every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. That's 8 a.m. Pacific. And you can catch the podcast in video format over on YouTube, where if you're not subscribed already, definitely hit that subscribe button over there. We would appreciate it very much. And of course, if you're an audio podcast listener, that is available on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Lastly, and finally, check us out on all the socials: TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at Hoth Hangout. We would love to have you following us over there on those, especially Instagram, where we sometimes post some behind the scenes, like pre and post podcast photos where Joey and I are taking silly selfies, as we call them. So um, it's been a fun one. Joey, any last thoughts or comments on Kenobi? Any excitement about Ahsoka or just anything Star Wars?
You did not kill Anakin. I killed Anakin. What a good line.
That is one of the most epic moments in Star Wars history, I will say. So, Obi Wan Kenobi still holds up over a year later. We very much enjoyed our rewatches, and we encourage you to rewatch it if you haven't yet. Hopefully, that's something you'll consider doing after listening to this episode. Yeah, check out Joey's shirt, by the way. If you're a video podcast listener, By the way, side note, Joey always wears way cooler shirts than I do. So if you're an audio only Hoth Hangout listener and you've never watched the video version, just to see Joey's shirts alone is a reason to watch the video version of the podcast. So we appreciate you guys all, as always, listening to this episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast. We'll catch you in the next one where we'll be ranking the Star Wars species, and we hope to see you next time. May the Force be with you.